While it's always nice to be surprised by an unexpectedly successful movie, there are just many more films out there that seem blatantly doomed long before they've ever actually released. Doomed, I say. Doomed! And I hate to say it, that feels true of these upcoming films, each of which seems unlikely to curry both critical and commercial success. Perhaps they're a sequel or spin-off that just waited too damn long to come out. Maybe they're cursed with a terrible release date, or the departure of a key crew member has left the production in flux ever since. Whatever the case, I'm Ewan, you're watching Whatculture, and here are a whole bunch of upcoming movies which are already doomed. First up, Fast Forever. Though there's no denying the popularity of the Fast and Furious franchise, it's also tough to ignore the series' decline since the critical and commercial highs of 2015's Furious 7. That's like 10 years of Fast and Furious being not good, which is, bad. Each subsequent sequel and spin-off has basically been less warmly received by critics and fans alike, with 2023's Fast X grossing less than the series' 5 previous films, suggesting all but the most die-hard fans had basically lost interest. Also, yeah, Fast X is that's one of the worst theatrical experiences I've had in a hot minute. Yeah, the series is clearly just about celebrities promoting their most marketable selves and nothing else at this point. It's bad. They got in on the joke, and it's bad. And though Fast 11, as it was then known, was announced before Fast X was even released, it was left in a tricky spot following that film's commercial underperformance. This led to reports that Universal intended to make Fast 11 a franchise-capping entry at a considerably lower budget than the more recent installments. And if the budget couldn't be kept under $200 million, it might not get made at all. Back in January though, Fast Forever was confirmed for a March 17th, 2028 release, almost 3 years later than its original announced April 4th, 2025 premiere. Even ignoring that this 5-year gap will be by far the longest time between Fast sequels, there are other pressing issues going on here. For one, Fast X ended on a utterly ridiculous cliffhanger that, frankly, nobody really cares about. The cast has become too huge to support a more modestly budgeted blockbuster, and the cherry on top of this proverbial bad crap cake is that Vin Diesel is saying that Paul Walker's Brian O'Connor will make a comeback here. Probably through some ghoulish VFX chicanery or something. Yeah, none of this suggests that Fast 11 is going to deliver a satisfying conclusion to a franchise that, in the opinion of many, found a perfect leaping off point with Furious 7. Like, let's just wrap it up. The show's over. We don't need to do this anymore, Vin. Go and make a new Riddick movie or something. Anything. Please. You don't need me to tell you that it's a crazy, unpredictable world out there, and for movies that means mergers, acquisitions, licensing weirdness, and a whole bunch of other things that can stop you from watching the stuff you want to watch, and when. You'll be there scrolling, looking for, I don't know, the 1987 horror vampire classic Near Dark, only to find that it's nowhere to be found. Like, what's with that? Luckily, our good pal Norton VPN, who I'm still calling Ed Norton VPN for full, much to the chagrin of my employers, is here to help us movie lovers out by letting us watch what we want, when we want. Scan the QR code on screen or use the link in the description and you can get 54% off your first year's subscription, working out as little as $4.17 per month, or £2.50 a month if you're in the UK like yours truly. Again, that's less than $5 a month to watch the stuff you love and look after your privacy while you do it. And hey, if you decide you don't want to keep going, Norton also has a 60-day money-back guarantee too, which is just proper lovely it is. A big thank you to Norton for sponsoring this video. You are, and always have been, my favorite Norton. Next up, The Beatles, a 4-film cinematic event. There is no denying the ambition of Sam Mendes' 4-film Beatles biopic project, where each member of the legendary rock group will get their own theatrically released movie. The casting choices are buzzworthy: Paul Mescal as Paul McCartney, Harris Dickinson as John Lennon, Joseph Quinn as George Harrison, and Barry Keoghan as Ringo Starr. But The entire endeavor seems like it might be sunk by casting for name reasons mainly, and also, releasing all 4 movies on the same day. What's up with that? And also, just making 4 movies in general. Like, my dudes, just pick a Beatle, like the rest of us have, and make them your whole personality. None of this, oh, we'll do all of them nonsense. No, that's just called being greedy. You got greedy, Sam. Just pick one and go from there. Whatever the case, all 4 films will be released on the same day, April 7th, 2028, which, to the outside observer, seems like a surefire way to guarantee that they all end up flopping at the box office because of cross-Beatle cannibalization. Now, realistically, casual audience members might be coaxed out of the house to watch the McCartney and Lennon films, but I'm gonna say now there's virtually zero chance that anyone outside of the die-hard Beatles fanbase will take the time or spend the money to watch all 4 films before they leave cinemas. It just feels like a ridiculous, counterproductive strategy, rather than releasing one of the biopic films every 3 or so months over the course of a year, or maybe 1 per year. But even worse than that, it feels kind of bland in a forensic sort of way. A film about George Harrison or Ringo Starr from a filmmaker who was willing to bend the image to suit their spiritual and Octopus Garden vibes respectively could make something brilliant. But with Mendes, I just don't see that happening. A great director, but he feels ill-suited to this material. My other issue here, and I know that I've been rambling for a while now, is that the Beatles are already entwined with cinema. You think of A Hard Day's Night, Yellow Submarine. As a band, they were always about pushing forward and being experimental. If you're gonna do a movie, let alone 4, you need to bear that in mind. Honestly, if it was me, I'd be doing a Paul biopic that locks in on the Wings years, or maybe his solo stuff. Like, do a whole movie about the creation of Temporary Secretary. That's something the whole family could enjoy. Or, do that with George. Doing all 4 like this with these frankly unimaginative casting choices, and when Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story already kind of preemptively roasted this exact sort of thing happening, I just don't see it. Next up, another Star Trek reboot. It's frankly baffling that this July will mark an entire decade since the release of the last theatrical Star Trek movie, Star Trek Beyond, which was really underrated, and though Paramount has made a spirited attempt to get a 4th Abrams-verse movie made, it just hasn't come together. And so, last November, Paramount finally admitted defeat of sorts, announcing that they were no longer pursuing Star Trek 4 and had instead hired filmmakers Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daley, the guys behind Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves, to helm a new franchise reboot. Goldstein and Daley's film will be an entirely new take on Trek with no connections to any existing iteration. And while in theory this sounds like just the sort of fresh start the IP desperately needs, it'll be a considerably trickier sell to mainstream audiences. Look, if recent cinema history has proven anything, it's that general viewers love familiarity and nostalgia. And so a new Trek movie featuring some version of Kirk or Picard is probably the safest way to go. And while Goldstein and Daley certainly had the chops to deliver an entertaining new riff on Trek, it doesn't mean audiences are gonna turn up for a Trek reboot filled with entirely new characters. That being said, I do really think that a next-gen reboot could go extremely hard. I'm not overall down with a lot of the new Trek era, honestly, but if you can lean into some of those next-gen vibes or, actually commit to a new Trek aesthetic that feels crisply made for cinema, which seems to be the plan, then hey, maybe there's a way forward. Trekkers, let me know in the comments below. Next up, Madden. Oh boy, what idiot thought that the kids would be going Madden about Madden, eh? Those out-of-touch idiots. It's the best I got. Though filmmaker David O. Russell is an undeniable controversy magnet, he's also a highly successful director with 5 Oscar noms to his name, while having directed 3 actors to Oscar-winning performances. But Russell's hot streak seems to be long behind him, and following the failure of 2022's drama Amsterdam, he's set to return with a biopic of American football coach and commentator John Madden. Beyond this simply seeming less interesting than Russell's recent hit projects and the somewhat questionable casting of Nicolas Cage in the role of Madden, there's the fact that Russell's on-set conduct seems to be, once again, torpedoing the film's momentum. And yeah, if true, this one is particularly gross. In May 2025, several actors and crew members reportedly walked off the set after Russell used the N-word. And by the end of last year, it was confirmed that the film would be foregoing a major theatrical release and instead releasing day and day on Amazon Prime Video. It's the yikes. Yikes all around. It's easy to glean from this that the movie is basically being sent out to die because Amazon doesn't fancy its awards prospects, in turn allowing all involved to avoid answering too many questions about Russell, rustling all over the place. If Madden doesn't come and go in the blink of an eye amid mediocre reviews, well, honestly, it would be a huge shock. Next up, The Lord of the Rings, The Hunt for Gollum. Every time this one comes up in a list, I'm kind of just like, why? 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 My own spiraling thoughts of disdain aside, The Lord of the Rings The Hunt for Gollum is a new interquill set between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings trilogy, and will be the franchise's first live-action theatrical release since 2014's The Hobbit, The Battle of the Five Armies. As popular an IP as Lord of the Rings undeniably is, and as appealing as it'll be to see Andy Serkis, Elijah Wood, and Ian McKellen back in the roles of Gollum, Frodo, and Gandalf, this one has a whole ton of red flags, just going all over the place. It's the best way I can do a flag motion. Kind of feels like it's a sword now. I'm gonna pray that the editor can do a flag. Some kind of, maybe if we stand still, we'll get the flags going. Yeah, red flags, woo. I'm not looking forward to this movie. But yes, the flags, let's get into them. For one, there's the fact that the story is based on J.R.R. Tolkien's appendices in the Lord of the Rings books, which already feels like a bit like, scraping the cinematic barrel. Then there's also the decision to let Serkis direct, despite only having one of his 4 directorial efforts to date, Venom: Let There Be Carnage, being a commercial success. On top of all of this, The Hunt for Gollum is currently set to release on December 17th, 2027. The very same day that Avengers: Secret Wars hits cinemas and sucks all the oxygen out of the room. Like, if Lord of the Rings doesn't move, it's going to be in there, and it's going to be going, I can't breathe. But yeah, needless to say, if Warner Brothers stubbornly sticks to this date rather than shift it into 2028, it's going to be an absolute bloodbath, to say nothing of the film's quality. Next up, Pressure. Ding 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 ding. Ding 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 ding. It's Pressure. Ding 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 ding. Ding 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 ding. Pressure. Ding 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 ding. Dun 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 dun. Brendan Fraser. Dun 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 dun. It's Pressure. It's a film about the D-Day landings and the weather. It's Pressure. Damian Lewis is here and Andrew Scott as well. Yeah, that's true. It's the terror of knowing what pressure's about. Watching these bad castings come and take me out. I hope that makes it into the video, to be honest. Really do, really do. Let's do this seriously. So for those who don't know, Pressure is a new war drama based on David Haig's 2014 play of the same name. And though the source material opened to positive reviews, there is considerable skepticism about this glossy Hollywood take. And it almost solely comes down to casting. The story, centered around the Supreme Allied Commander Dwight D. Eisenhower deciding upon the timing of the D-Day landings, has undeniable dramatic potential. Yet, the moment the first trailer dropped, many questioned the decision to cast Brendan Fraser as Eisenhower. Look, that's certainly not a knock against Fraser's acting ability. I recently really loved him in Rental Family. It's just that not every good actor is right for every role, and in terms of his physical build, his overall look, and voice, Fraser does not look like Ike in any way, shape, or form. From the trailer, it simply feels like Fraser is kind of just wearing an Eisenhower outfit. And while it's possible he could win us all over in a 2-hour movie, the casting discourse doesn't set the greatest vibe from the jump. And that's without even noticing that Damian Lewis is Bernard Montgomery here. And he does not look like Bernard Montgomery either. What are we doing? Next up, Face Off 2. While by no means my favorite John Woo American movie, that would have to be the classic that is Hard Target, Face Off is one of the most gloriously absurd and maximalist action films ever made, and seemed like a categorical one-off considering both the specificity of its premise and the fact that Nicolas Cage's villainous Castor Troy dies at the end. But in February 2021, Face Off 2 was formally announced with Adam Wingard, the director behind The Guest and Godzilla vs. Kong, set to direct, and it was later confirmed that both original stars Cage and John Travolta would be returning. In 2024, Wingard stated that the script was amazing and pre-production was quote-unquote full steam ahead, all while keeping fans in the dark about precisely how Cage's dead antagonist would actually go about returning. But back in February, we learned that Wingard had abruptly left the project for undisclosed reasons, with Paramount now seeking open pitches from other interested filmmakers. Considering that Wingard seemed like the driving force behind the film for years, enthusiastically talking it up at every opportunity, it wouldn't be remotely surprising if his departure condemns Face Off 2 to development hell forevermore. After all, finding a filmmaker who can do the job is just one part of the equation. With Travolta now 72 years of age and Cage well into his 60s, the window for the duo to persuasively star in a hardcore action flick is fast closing, if it hasn't already. My last comment on this as well, there is no point in doing Face Off 2 without John Woo. You need Woo for Face Off 2. It even rhymes. I don't care how much you like the original and how much you think that you might be able to do justice to it. If John Woo ain't involved, I'm not watching. Next up, The Mandalorian and Grogu. How the mighty have fallen. The Star Wars brand has been in something of a tricky spot since the release of the terrible Episode 9 The Rise of Skywalker, as Disney has shifted their focus towards building out a TV-focused universe, all while the series' theatrical future seems somewhat uncertain. But The Mandalorian and Grogu will be the first big-screen Star Wars film since The Rise of Skywalker, and while The Mandalorian is one of the most successful new Star Wars projects of the past decade, it's also fair to say that there's understandable skepticism about this particular spin-off. For one, The Mandalorian's popularity tapered off significantly in its really terrible third season, and there's also a popular perception that this film simply doesn't look large-scale enough to justify a theatrical release, more or less looking like a feature-length episode of the TV show, which, yeah, I'd have to agree. And above all else, there's the possibility that the novelty factor of the show, and in particular the little baby gremlin himself, has largely worn off, leading some to suspect that The Mandalorian and Grogu will underperform at the box office. Though it has a modest budget of around $170 million, Disney is said to be, quote, concerned about the movie's ability to perform well with audiences. And frankly, it would shock few if The Mandalorian and Grogu posted lackluster numbers similar to Solo: A Star Wars Story. Brief concluding thoughts on The Mandalorian as well. Season 2 was such a natural endpoint for that show. The finale, which I didn't massively care for, but at least had an ending. It made sense, there was an arc, and then it kind of felt like Disney were like, oh no, our Funko Pop selling king, Baby Yoda, we need to bring him back. And that's, yeah, this does not look good. I kind of really hate the approach that Lucasfilm has to Star Wars in regards to just what movies that they wanted to make post Rise of Skywalker and which ones haven't happened. Like, Steven Soderbergh wanted to make you a Star Wars movie about one of the most popular things about the divisive sequel trilogy, and you said no! You said no to Steven Soderbergh. What the hell is going on there? Next up, Desert Warrior. Desert Warrior is a historical action drama film starring Anthony Mackie as Hanzala, a mysterious warrior who rescues a princess from the tyrannical Emperor Kisra. The $150 million blockbuster is the largest film production ever shot in Saudi Arabia, with Saudi production company MBC Group hoping for it to be a launching pad for other star-studded tentpoles. However, Desert Warrior wrapped shooting back in February 2022 and still hasn't been theatrically released. The film's post-production process dragged on for years, in part due to director Rupert Wyatt, who previously directed Rise of the Planet of the Apes, briefly quitting the film amid creative differences before later agreeing to return, which is, really awkward. Desert Warrior did finally premiere at the Zurich Film Festival last September, but most major outlets didn't even bother reviewing it, which really tells you how little interest there is for this one out there. US distributor Vertical expects to release the film theatrically later in 2026, though the chance of it getting anywhere close to recouping its hefty budget seems basically nil. And last up, we have Kung Fury 2. Kung Fury was a riotously entertaining 2015 short film from filmmaker David Sandberg, which served as an over-the-top love letter to 1980s martial arts and cop movies. The short went viral and has amassed more than 40 million views on YouTube, allowing Sandberg to secure funding to develop a feature-length sequel. Kung Fury 2 was shot in the summer of 2019 and rocked an attention-grabbingly stacked cast, led by Michael Fassbender, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Alexandra Shipp, Jorma Taccone, and David Hasselhoff. But we're now fast approaching 7 years since Kung Fury 2 wrapped and the film still isn't out, apparently due to an ongoing lawsuit between the film's investors, which is so not cash money. Though this lawsuit initially halted post-production, the film has been confirmed to be finished since at least 2024, all while the aforementioned legal issues have left its release in limbo. Things got desperate enough that someone leaked a 10-minute sizzle reel of the film online last year, presumably in the hope of stimulating some movement and getting the movie released by popular demand, but close to a year later, it sadly doesn't seem to have changed things at all. Kung Fury 2 will probably, hopefully, release at some point, but you do have to ask, after all this time, will anyone still care? I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna be there because I love Arnold Schwarzenegger and I'll watch anything he does, but to general John public on the street, I don't know. I don't fancy its chances.